In this video lecture, we're going to discuss rhetorical principles of professional and technical correspondence. The big idea is that anytime you write something in the workplace or something technical, you need to persuade people that what you have to say is worthwhile, that it should be believed, and that people should follow through. This PowerPoint will help you do that. First off, we need to discuss the idea of rhetoric. Rhetoric is, according to Aristotle, the person who first wrote the book, literally wrote the first book about rhetoric, rhetoric is the ability to see the available means of persuasion. This is important because professional and technical correspondence is all about persuading your audience. Maybe you want them to do something for you. Maybe you want them to take something from you, to believe what you are telling them, to act on that information, or perhaps to change their behavior into a way that you want them to behave. There are three major rhetorical appeals that we can talk about. There are ethos, pathos, and logos. They all fit together in a thing called Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. They work like this. Ethos is the appeal to the character or credibility of the rhetor. The rhetor is a person who is speaking or writing. So, if a person who is speaking or writing has good ethos, then the reader or listener can believe what that person has to say. It's a good person speaking. I should put my trust in this person and do what he or she wants. Then we have pathos. Pathos is an appeal to emotion. In English we have the word pathetic. That often means sad or sorry. That's not quite what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is just plain an appeal to emotion. So if a person who is writing is using a pathos-based argument, that person is playing on the reader's heartstrings and saying, oh, you should feel this way and follow through because you feel this way. Then we've got logos. Logos is an appeal to logic. The logic of, does this argument make sense or not? If a person is using a logos-based argument, then, according to the technical material you've put forward, then this is the correct answer and you should blank because it makes sense. Once we talk about all these appeals, then we have the idea of the text and where to place it, at least metaphorically. So you write whatever it is you're going to write, and then you're going to emphasize ethos, pathos, logos, or any combination of those. Always think about your audience. Analyze your audience. What does your audience want? What does your audience need? What does your audience know? What will make that audience say, yes, I like that really a whole lot. I will follow through. That's how you decide what rhetorical appeals to use. When we go through the materials to follow in this PowerPoint, always consider, do I want to use more ethos, less ethos? Emphasize pathos, downplay pathos. Bring up the logos, or take down the logos so it's not boring. This is your choices as we go through the rest of the PowerPoint. We're going to talk about three major types of correspondence. First off, we have memos. These things are formal documents. They're usually fairly short, a couple of pages, and they're used internally. So you're going to work at a company, you're going to write something to a coworker, to a supervisor, you write a memo, it goes in the company files, it stays forever. Then you've got emails. Emails can be either formal or informal. In terms of technical correspondence, they're usually going to be more formal, but if you were just shooting an email to the person in the cubicle over the way, you might just write a couple of words. It all depends on the context. Whatever the case, emails are usually fairly short. Nobody really, especially at work, wants to read a super long email. They want their information quickly and up front and be done with it. Emails are used internally or externally. You use them inside your place of work all the time, and you may communicate with people outside work at other organizations, or the general public. Even though the general public is the wrong word to use, we'll use it for just illustrative purposes. You're working with the American public, somebody who's going to buy your product, then they email you, hey, how do I use this thing? Send them an email, that's fine. So you can use emails internally or externally. Letters, on the other hand, are a little bit special. These are formal documents. You've written many informal letters in your life. Dear Mom, I'm at camp. I got bit by a snake. It's just terrible. Well, that's an informal letter, but when we're talking about technical and professional correspondence, we're talking formal documents. They can be short or long. Usually they're a page at least, often more than that, but you don't want to write too much because nobody wants to really wade through a super long letter. These things are dated and signed in ink. Why is that important? It is important because they are semi-contractual documents. So let's assume that Ashley here is a student. We're hanging out in class and joking around, and Ashley says, "Hey, Dr. Arnett, you know what? I heard you needed your house painted. You've been talking about that. Tell you what, I'm going to come over on Saturday. You give me $20. I'll paint your house, and it's going to look fantastic." I say, "Sure, Ashley, come on over. I'll be waiting for you." Is Ashley going to come over on Saturday and paint my house for $20? No, she is not. But what if Ashley sends me a letter and says, "Dear Dr. Arnett, I understand you would like your house painted. I am interested in earning the $20 that you offered for it. I will be over on Saturday the 14th and paint your house." Now, am I going to expect Ashley to come over and paint my house for $20? If she sent me a letter that she dated and signed in ink, then, well, yeah, she's kind of on the hook for it. So anyway, goodbye, Ashley. See you Saturday. Letters are used externally. Sometimes you will write an internal letter, but if that happens, it's usually a very, very serious issue, and you want to stay super formal. Generally speaking, your letters are going to go outside your place of work. And then, a letter is also often coming along with another formal document. If you write a proposal, if you write a report and send it to somebody, oftentimes you're going to put one of these on the front and attach, call it a cover letter, so that the person receiving it knows what this thing is. Also, think about if you ever got a letter from a lawyer. Does the letter, did the lawyer contact you with a packet of papers? Just, "Here, papers, sign these." No, they sent you a packet with a bunch, with all those letters, all those documents with a letter on top that says, "Here, this is what it is," and so on. So the point is, letters often go along with other formal documents. We're going to talk about some strategies for writing emails, memos, and letters in the workplace. The first thing, and by the way, we're going to go through these individually. You don't need to copy them down right now. We'll talk about them as we go. But preview, there's a thing called the you attitude. We need to consider our tone. We need to know how to write a good introduction, how to base the paragraphs on the topics they contain. There are 4 vital ideas you want to include, how and why to use short paragraphs, and a thing called the action conclusion. Let's talk about the you attitude first. In terms of the you attitude, you need to say, "Hey, reader, I understand what's going on with you. So whatever it is that you're writing about, analyze your audience, figure out what is your audience about, how does she or he feel about this situation. Then put yourself in their shoes. Try to identify, is there something that you and the reader will both benefit from? So if you're offering some sort of a deal, what is the benefit for the reader? What will she or he actually get out of this? It's always a good idea to explicitly explain what the benefits are. If you leave it between the lines, the person may not understand, or you may not get what you want. So explain, what exactly are you going to get, dear reader, if you follow through with this? Another good idea in terms of you attitude is to focus on the reader. Is it wrong to say I, me, my? No, absolutely, it's fine. Those are good, useful English words. We can and should use them. Point is, we shouldn't use them too much. Focus on the reader. By the way, trivia question. What is your absolute favorite subject in the world? Best thing to talk about, absolutely. The answer? The answer is yourself. Because everyone is their own favorite subject. So if you focus on the person who is reading this, and hey, you, here's all about you, the person that you are writing to is more likely to respond in a positive way. Speaking of positivity, sometimes you are going to have to write negative feedback. So if something isn't right, people are not going to like what you have to say. That's all right. The point is, when you do that, try to avoid the word you. If you say, "You screwed up here," people are going to feel attacked. Instead, talk about the problem and avoid referring to people directly in, like, "Here, you did this wrong, you failed." Try to avoid doing that. Another idea we need to talk about is tone. First thing you need to keep in mind is you want to be formal, but not stiff in your technical and professional correspondence. If you overwrite things, you're going to start sounding pompous. No one likes a stuffed shirt. Use normal language. Don't try to puff it up. Along those lines, you want to stay approachable, right? So you don't puff it up, but at the same time, you need to stay businesslike. If you start to grovel, if you start to pretend that, hey, reader, you and I are just good friends, aren't we? You're not going to get a positive response. Classic example. Let's assume that I want to get $1 from you. What if I walked up to you and said, oh, hi, hey, I feel really embarrassed. I'm just an idiot. I left my wallet at home today, and geez, I feel really bad bothering you, but I'm gonna starve. I mean, really, can I please borrow $1? I'll totally pay you back. Now, are you going to give me $1? Is that going to happen? No, you're not. What if I came up to you and said, hey, what's going on? Yeah. Tell you what, give me $1, will ya? It's cool, yeah? Are you going to give me $1? No, you're not going to give me $1. What if I came up to you and said, I feel a little embarrassed to ask you, but I left my wallet at home today, and you're the only person I know here. Could I borrow $1 from you? I'll be sure to pay you back as soon as I possibly can. Odds are, that's how I would get $1 from you. Another idea about tone is you want to use language your reader will understand. This kind of goes back to the not overwriting, not sounding pompous, but the idea is if you start to use fancy language or, worse yet, highly technical terms that your reader will not get, that's going to go straight over their head and they will not get it. So, be formal in this stuff, don't be stiff, be approachable, but at the same time, keep that sort of arm's length distance because this is business. This is not just hanging out. Writing a good intro is challenging, but it's very important. You want to keep that first line tight, yo. What you want to do is clarify a couple of ideas. What are you writing about? Why are you writing about it? And is there any context that the reader already knows about? So, for example, major question you might want to answer is, who are you? And what is it you're writing about? What is it that you want? Now, you aren't actually going to put your petition, your, hey, I want this, up front in the introduction, but you're going to start to slide into that idea and at least tell the subject that you're writing about. The intro body paragraph should be 4 to 5 lines. Please notice the word lines is italicized. We are not talking sentences. Again, not talking sentences. We are talking physical lines on the page. That is because if you go beyond that, you will get this. Too long, didn't read. You want to make sure people read what you have to say. So if you keep that intro paragraph fairly short, they will actually read it. If it's applicable, if you have had communication with a person in the past about the subject you're writing about again, remind the person, hey, remember we talked about this, we wrote about this, we talked about it at the conference, we met in the elevator and discussed this, and you asked me to write to you? All right, in that case, you can put those ideas into the intro paragraph. The big idea, though, is do not go into new detail. The introduction is, again, well, it's an introduction. It just says, here's a little taste of what's coming, and then in the following paragraphs, then you can go into detail. Each paragraph should have its own topic. So, for example, the first paragraph, you're always going to include introduction. So, what is it you're writing? What's it about? Why are you writing about it? And is there any context that the person who is writing, or reading I should say, you're writing, what is the context? What does the person need to know about this? Paragraphs that come after that, they have specific functions. We're going to talk about narration, petition, justification, and the action conclusion. So break for a new paragraph anytime you switch topics. There are 4 big ideas that we just mentioned: narration, petition, justification, and the action conclusion. The narration, if you think about these words, they actually make a whole lot of sense. Narration, what does a narrator do? A narrator tells a story, so that's what you do in your narration paragraph. Tell a story. What's going on? You're going to explain in more detail here why you're contacting the reader. This is where you start to go into detail about the what and why that you hinted at, or at least started to mention in your introduction. The petition, then, that's where you ask a reader for something, or possibly you offer the reader something. This is the heart of your letter. This is what it's all about. You have to state your petition very, very clearly. And by the way, where should you put the petition? The petition sentence should be either at the beginning or at the end of a paragraph. If you put it in the middle of a paragraph, you are quote-unquote burying it, and your reader will miss whatever it is. Put your petition, what do you want, up front or at the very end of a paragraph. The next paragraph then following is the justification section. This is where you explain why is it what you offered or asked for is worthwhile. This is a good place, by the way, to start really focusing on that you attitude. What will the reader get if she or he accepts your offer? Then, the action conclusion is where you encourage the reader to do something specific. You wrap up your letter and push them into action. When you're writing these paragraphs, a couple of ideas to keep in mind. The big important one is write it short. If you want to keep your paragraph fewer than 8 physical lines, why is that? It's because longer than that, you get the dreaded wall o' words. Nobody wants to read all this stuff. What if you got this letter and it had a paragraph like that? First thing, I just feel tired looking at it, and I'm not even going to go through it. I'm just going to say, whatever, go away. So, keep your paragraphs 8 lines or fewer, and you'll be in good shape. It's a good idea as well to use an easily readable font in 11 or 12 point size. There are many professional fonts to use. Sometimes your company will have a particular typeface that they want you to use. Go ahead and use that. If not, use something that makes good sense and is actually easily readable. Don't make your reader work hard, because if you get really fussy, then they're going to make, no. Don't make your reader work. Make it easy as possible for them. And break for paragraphs whenever you need to. Those ideas, narration, petition, justification, action, you can, if necessary, squash them together. Put a couple of them, maybe 3 of them, in their own, or in a single paragraph. If the message is really simple, hey, fine, great, go for it. But you'll probably encounter more success if you break them apart into their own paragraphs. The final conclusion of your letter, memo, email, it should always be a call to action. That call to action is a statement of what is it that you want the reader to do. The big idea here is you got to be specific. Take a look at that example sign. The sign on the left, it's vague. Well, what if you saw it? Well, you're homeless, please help. Well, what sort of help do you want? I don't know. The sign on the right, need only $10 to get back home? Yes. That sign is actually going to get results. Please, though, when you restate what is you want your reader to do, that you're essentially restating your petition, hey, reader, remember I asked you to do this before? This is where it comes to action. Please, actually do it. You want to be firm about it, but you don't want to be pushy about it. To go back to the example we used before about the dollar. What if I walked up to you and said, give me $1? Are you going to give me $1? Most likely not. Most likely to give me the stink eye and then just turn away. So, what if I walked up to you and said, hi, I've left my wallet at home. I really feel embarrassed and I'm sorry to ask, but might I borrow $1 from you? I would really appreciate it very much, and I will pay you back as soon as I humanly can. Am I being pushy? No, I'm being nice. Am I being firm? Yes, I am. So it's pretty clear what I want, and you are likely to respect me and hopefully give me that $1. Speaking of money, you want to be reasonable. Now, I'm saying money because I've actually got a little story to tell you. Back in the day, I was a graduate student at Texas Tech University. This is the pool where I worked, and once I was during a winter break in Lubbock, Texas. It got really, really cold, and we had to close the main pool for some maintenance. So we moved operations over to another pool that has since been demolished, but that secondary pool was about that big. It was a really tiny little pool. It was about 25 yards long, only about 3 lanes wide, and we were there, and it was oh, it was horrible. It was cold, cold, cold. Nobody was coming in, and we had to stay on duty. We had to have 2 people there all the time. So I'm working there one day, and I realized, you know what? I didn't have time to bring a lunch, and this is before Uber Eats, so I can't call and say, hey, would you bring me some food? I'm stuck. I'm stuck there for about 4 hours. I'm getting really hungry. So what do? I go out in the hallway. I find the vending machine. I look for the things in the vending machine that had the most ounces in. I was looking at, oh, that has a 1/4 ounce more food. Maybe I'll get that. So I feed my money in. I get some crackers. I open the crackers, take them back to my chair, sit down, pop them in my mouth, and oh, they are the worst thing that I've ever tasted in my life. I look at the package. No wonder they taste terrible. These things expired last year. So I kept the package. I called up the vending machine company and said, hey, your stuff is just, it's way out of date. You probably want to rotate your stock. And the lady on there, oh my, we're very, very, very sorry. Oh, what's your name? So they got my name, my address, what I bought, and then in the mail, I got a check for 65 cents. What do I do with a check for 65 cents? Is it really worth standing in line at the bank to cash the thing? To mail it to my bank? The stamp would be more than half of what the check was worth. So what do I do with this thing? Well, would it have been reasonable of me to say, hey, lady, you know what? I appreciate you trying to send me a check for 65 cents, but it's just not worth my time. How about you send me a check for $6.50? Was I going to get $6.50 from them? The answer, no. I would never get $6.50 from them. At the same time, I would think it would be reasonable, but they would not think it's reasonable. So this is a good example, again, of thinking of the you attitude. Look at it from your reader's perspective. How are they going to win? Well, they won by making me happy and be doing the honest thing by giving my money back. But at the same time, I would have liked more than 65 cents, but again, it would not have been reasonable. So make sure that your call to action is actually a reasonable call to action. You also want to avoid the dreaded limp noodle ending. For example, hoping to hear from you soon. Well, when is soon? So if I read this and I get the letter, like, they're hoping to hear from me soon. Yeah, that's whenever I feel like getting back to you. That's a limp noodle. It's no good. You need to be a little more firm and decisive, and maybe if there's a deadline, let me have a deadline. But at the same time, don't be pushy. How about, let me know if you have any questions? Oh boy. Well, what do I do with this? This is kind of a limp noodle, isn't it? Now, it can be situationally appropriate. For example, if you write to me and I write you back, and at the end of my email say, let me know if you have any more questions. Do I really want to know? Sure. How about if a professional communication response that you're sending to somebody, trying to get something going? Hey, person in the other organization, let's work on this. I'd like to buy this from you. Let me know if you have any questions. Well, that person probably has all sorts of questions, but they don't have anywhere to start. Give them something specific to do. That's going to end this particular PowerPoint. So let me know if you have any questions, all right? Yeah, no. How about, if you have any questions, please ask next time class meets. Or you may also email me at this address or stop by during my office hours. So, we have talked about rhetorical principles of technical communication. We can talk about what is rhetoric. We've talked about principles that go into writing emails, letters, and memos. And you have the rhetorical information and audience analysis and so on, and you are ready to go and begin writing useful, persuasive, and productive professional and technical communications.